Today's episode is brought to you by Fretboard Biology, the comprehensive online guitar course put together by Joe Elliott. Now, Joe is not only a fantastic guitar player, he draws on his years of experience as the ex-head of guitar at the Guitar Institute of Technology and also at the McNally Smith Music College. Here's a few words from Joe about the course.
If you're tired of wading through hundreds of random guitar videos and just want to become a better player, Fretboard Biology is your answer. Fretboard Biology is a self-paced, college-level program that'll give you the right instruction, in the right amounts, and in the right order. You'll learn the same information I taught to thousands of other guitar players over 30 years of teaching in top music colleges. If you want to make real progress with your guitar playing, then sign up for a free 7-day trial at fretboardbiology.com.
Hey everyone, welcome to the Guitar Speak podcast. My name's Matt Wakeling and this is the show that I produce in Sydney, Australia, where I speak to leading guitarists and guitar figures, and also established pretty much mid-2020 is the Iconic Album Series, and that's what we're running in today's episode with my friends Rob Rhodes.
Hey Matt, hey Gabor.
And Gabor Josika.
Hey guys, how are you?
Great, man. Great to see you guys. Now, with the Iconic Albums, we talk about some of the favourite albums in our record collections. And this has been a really fun addition to the podcast this year. I have loved it, absolutely. Now, we're doing something a little different in this episode. We're not looking at one album. We're looking at several albums. We're close to a dozen live albums. And this was Rob's idea for a different kind of episode, which is such a good idea. I think live albums... For me, I love live albums for a couple of reasons. One is that, you hear some songs that you love from a band you're really into with a whole new energy, sometimes whole new arrangements. So that's always really fun. And a nice byproduct of the live album is that sometimes they work as like a de facto greatest hits album. So that can also be fun if there's a favourite artist or band that you want to check out. So Rob, awesome idea, man.
Thanks. Yeah, it's a good little rabbit hole to go down.
Definitely. And I guess a couple of caveats. It's impossible to choose all of our favourite live albums. So I think we've got it to 11 tonight. So we could do a new live album every day for the next 20 years. We might actually we might revisit this idea in 2022, I think. That could be fun. So we're getting through as many as we can. By the time we get to the end of the episode, if you hear any albums that you really want to hear, shoot us a line. In fact, I've got a little bit of listener feedback that I want to share with you guys.
Cool.
Before we jump into the live albums, this comes from Anthony Gerber. Anthony actually is the super cool dude who has set up a playlist on Spotify with all of the Iconic Albums episodes, which is really cool.
Yeah, right.
And he shot me another note. So it says this. You ready? Some positive feedback. Gabor's selections and comments are resonating a lot with me. He's introducing me to albums that I love, and I've been so relieved to hear someone voice my "I don't get it" feeling about sacred cows like Cold Chisel and Van Halen. Smiley face.
Yes!
Oh,
yes!
You've got a soulmate out there.
Yes! We've got to meet. I have to meet him. We've got to meet up somewhere. And start a club. That's awesome. I'm glad. See, I mean, I know I'm always the black sheep, but there are other black sheep out there,
That's right. Anthony, thanks so much for dropping us that line. I knew Gabor would love it. I've been dying to share it with him.
Thanks, Anthony, and thanks, Matt.
There you go. Hey, if anyone's been listening to the episodes, you want to chime in, send an email, guitarspeakpodcast@gmail.com, or you can find us on Facebook or Instagram, or just catch Rob or Gabor or I down the street. It's all good.
Yeah.
All right. Live albums. Let's jump in. We've got a bunch to go through. Rob, would you like to kick us off? You've chosen for the first in your list, Bryan Adams, Live.
Yeah, this was a difficult thing, and I tried to maybe theme it to like go-to lives rather than, because if I had to pick three tomorrow, I'd probably pick a different three or four. So,
yeah, sure.
But on this day when you asked, this is where I was at. So, yeah, Bryan Adams, Live. It was released in 1988. So at that point, Brian had 4 studio albums. So it had lots of material to pick from. And he really, this is, as you said earlier, runs like his greatest hits come that time, 1988. It features Keith Scott on guitar, who I think is criminally underrated in the pop rock world of guitar players. And sadly, not sadly, but he got a Gretsch signature model that really failed to get any traction, but it's a beautiful guitar. It's kind of a take on a Chet Atkins. And yeah, beautiful, beautiful guitar. But again, I don't think he's quite in that league where everybody knows where he is and his signature model is going to be successful. But if you come across one, I reckon they might be future collector's items, those ones.
Got to check it out.
But it's Mickey Curry on drums, Dave Taylor on bass, Tommy Mandel on keyboards, the great Keith Scott on guitar, and of course Bryan Adams guitar and vocals. Now, the opening 6 tracks of this album are just killer. So She's Only Happy When She's Dancing, It's Only Love, Cuts Like a Knife, Kids Wanna Rock, Hearts on Fire, and Take Me Back. And then you get a couple of well-placed ballads, The Best Is Yet to Come, and of course his big hit Heaven. And then it's into the big anthems, the rock anthems again. Heat of the Night, which features a great out solo by Keith. Run to You, and then all the big ones, Long Gone, One Night Love Affair, Summer of 69, and Somebody, which is quite heavily featuring the Reckless album as far as the track listing, but all the big ones from that. And then a couple of covers, Walking After Midnight and I Fought the Law, and then a little ballady out on the end, Sing Along. Now, it was recorded at Rock Werchetta, which is Werchetta in Belgium. And it was a festival on the 3rd of July in 1988. But one track, Into the Fire, which is the outro, that was recorded in Tokyo. Now, the album sold over 1 million copies. So at the time, you can see how big Bryan Adams was, that a live album that wasn't billed as a greatest hits sold over 1 million copies. And it was recorded in an unbelievably torrential rainstorm. So you can hear him address it on the record as he says to them, for you guys to stand out in the rain is pretty amazing. And it runs at a total of 70 minutes. So if you think Bryan Adams is just, weepy ballads from the 90s, this is him at his rockin' best. And the band is on fire. The songs don't really go too far away from the recorded versions. There's a few extended jams and stuff, but yeah, basically it's a pretty tight, succinct 70-minute set of Bryan Adams at that time of his career.
Yeah, man. I agree. Keith Scott is unbelievably good. I reckon he's one of the main guys, maybe with someone like Elliott Easton from the Cars, who always plays the perfect guitar solo for the song that he's in.
Who has a Gretsch signature guitar as well?
Yes, true.
Maybe it's a Gretsch signature guitar thing.
Could be. Because Scott, when he wasn't doing the Gretsch thing, he was pretty much a Strat guy. For this record, he's been on the Strat,
Early on, he was he had the Gretches from time to time, but from some of the things I read, because I was researching that model a while ago, because one popped up on Marketplace, and he wasn't really a big fan. He didn't speak favourably of Gretches, so it was a strange decision that he got one, but it did make sense because in the 90s he did play Gretches quite a bit in the early 2000s with Brian. And Brian played Gretches too. He's photographed with them on album covers and but big Strat guys, both of them too. So
it looks cool. I don't think I've ever seen it. I'm just looking it up now. It's very sparkly.
Yeah,
looks great actually.
Hey, Bryan Adams' guitar sounds great on this record too. So he sounds like he's in stereo. That kind of Run to You thing, is awesome, man. And I think is he a Vox Is he plugged into a bunch of Voxes?
Quite possibly. He kind of. I don't know much about Brian as a guitar player, but he did. There's a lot of tellies and Strats, obviously rhythm instruments, and I have seen him with Gretches and 335s as well. So
I was just from seeing stuff on MTV and stuff when I was younger. I always remember Strats or Gretches. That was always and because I think he's quite a little dude as well. The Gretsch always looked really big on him. I just remember that.
And he's been
that's awesome.
He's been around a long time, Brian Adams. He was on opening tours for Van Halen and stuff in the late 70s. So he definitely paid his dues before the big hits. Cuts Like a Knife was probably his big injection worldwide as far as a hit single. And then when Reckless hit, you couldn't really escape Summer of '69, Run to You, Heaven. Those. Just a killer album from top to tail, that one too.
I had that record on cassette, actually.
Yeah, me too.
When I was in year 8 or something, I put the headphones on, and man, Keith Scott, those solos are burnt into my brain. Quick fun fact about Keith Scott that I heard from Dave Leslie. So Baby Animals, when they toured with Van Halen in the 90s, they also did some tours with Bryan Adams. They also opened for them. And then the last time Bryan Adams came out, they worked with the Baby Animals again. Anyway, he said backstage, Keith Scott was a killer jazz player.
Oh.
Makes sense. I guess he does follow that, chord-based harmony, soloing, like very melodic.
Yeah,
and
definitely.
That's out of my comfort zone.
Yep.
And mine. Awesome, man. Hey, great record, Rob. I loved hearing Keith rip live. His tone is killer. Everything's killer. It's great.
Thanks, man. Love it.
All right, let's jump over. Portishead live at Roselands. This is your record, Gabor.
Yes. Okay. So I picked. See, you were talking about live albums being sort of greatest hits, and to me, like, there's actually in my list 2 of the live albums were actually albums that introduced me to the band, and this was one of those. Because I remember seeing the concert on. I don't know if it was on like maybe Raid showed it one time, the whole concert, the whole show or something like that. But I remember I was in high school here in Australia. I saw it and I just loved it. I loved the Walnut 335 he was playing. I thought that's just the coolest looking guitar. The orchestra sitting there, it got me into the band. Anyway. So I don't know if how familiar you guys are with Portishead, but probably one of my all-time favorite bands. I got to put them up in I reckon top 5 of my all-time favorite bands. So this album was released on November 2nd, 1998, and it was recorded on July 24th, 1997, at Roselands Ballroom in New York City. So the band, there's a whole bunch of extra people in the band while they were playing live, but the band is really the guitar player Adrian Utley, vocals Beth Gibbons, and sort of electronics, DJ, and drumming and percussion Jeff Barrow. So they're the 3 guys that sort of they're the main brains behind the band. There's a really beautiful orchestra in this live recording as well, which was conducted by Nick Ingham, and the string arrangement was actually done by Adrian Utley, the guitar player. So he did the string arrangement. So I just wrote down sort of notes. I remember seeing the concert on TV, absolutely loved it. A good friend of mine who I've mentioned a couple of times on the podcast before, Daniel Brown. Hey, Daniel, if you're listening to this. I don't know why I'm waving into the camera, but anyway.
Daniel is waving.
He's waving, yeah. He's listened to a couple of... He listened to the Primus episode, and a couple of others, and commented to me about it and stuff like that. So he was sort of a bit of my... kind of like my musical guru, almost, in high school. And I sort of mentioned that, I think, once, that I said, that Portishead, that was great. And he pulled out, like always, he had every album by every band ever. And he pulled out the album and he said, this is their, which is the self-titled album. He said, have a listen to it. It's great. Absolutely loved it. I love Beth Gibbons' voice. She's just got such an emotive voice. Yeah. And I always say it's sort of on the verge of nervous breakdown, just barely. Anyway, so I love that band, and it's just a beautiful concert, sort of a mix of all their songs. At the time, they only had an album and an EP out anyway. I think, now they only have 2 albums and an EP out, so they're not a super highly productive band, but I think what they release is really, really good. I love the guitar. I love Adrian Utley's guitar. It's sort of that spy movie, 60s movie soundtrack, lots of low single note playing, very dissonant stuff as well. And he's a very basic, straightforward player. For the concert, he used a Silverface Fender Deluxe reverb. All the reverb and tremolo here come from the amp. He had a Rat, a Fuzz Face, a Wah, and possibly a DM2 delay by Boss. That's all he was using. But some beautiful guitar, from really nasty fuzz guitar tones, some beautiful cleans with that tremolo and reverb. He played Telly on it for a couple of songs. Black Fender Jaguar. Not much information on all of them. The guitar that sort of stood out to me the most was a walnut Gibson 335 with the block inlays, so possibly early 70s. Which in an article actually I read, he said he absolutely hated that guitar. He never liked it. He said it always sounded like a dog, and when he sort of had more money and could afford to get rid of it, he got rid of it and got other guitars.
Okay.
And he played a Takamine acoustic on some of the songs too, which he starts off acoustic and then it actually switches to the amp, and he uses a fuzz sound with the acoustic, which is kind of cool.
Nice.
But have you guys had much experience with Portishead?
When I got to uni in 2005, the big bands people were listening to was Radiohead.
Oh yeah.
And Portishead, really, in terms of bands that have kind of broken over into the mainstream, but were still doing really creative and interesting stuff. And there was a whole bunch of other crazy stuff going on, but those 2 bands I was listening to a lot then.
Oh, cool, yeah.
And I always dug the mix of, especially for the live album, the mix of the sample-based stuff, which obviously they did a lot in the studio, plus the live orchestration, and live guitars and live drums, which was really cool.
Live drums mixed with electronic drums and stuff. I love, that's one of the things I really love about what they do, is that sort of that blend of, I guess with air quotation marks, organic, like electric guitars, electric bass, real drums, and having the orchestra there as well.
Yeah, beautiful.
But then having all the electronic side of it, it just works together so well. And one of the coolest things, if you watch the whole show, there's a Rat pedal on everything. There's Rat pedals on keyboards. There's a Rat pedal next to the DJ thing. There's rats everywhere. So that's just for that,
I remember my first long-term relationship. Portishead and Fiona Apple were kind of the soundtrack to that relationship.
She's great too, Fiona Apple, yeah.
That speaks volumes, I guess.
Yeah.
It didn't work out. We're still great friends. Shout out Kate Hay. But she'd listened to a lot of that. Portishead, Fiona Apple, the first Powderfinger record, Massive Attack. That's all sort of around that time. So I can't recall it. It's back in some far off nostalgic memories there, and the tears well up when I hear it. But other than that, no, I actually went back and listened to Portishead not too long ago. It's great stuff.
I love it.
Beautiful.
It's so beautiful, the music, and her voice. It's just, I think, one of the most emotive singers ever. I reckon she just has so much emotion in her voice, whether it's sort of sassy emotion or like literally on the verge of completely exploding in self-hate and and hurt.
And they use it a lot to sort of in soundtracks, like to set mood. Like I hear it a lot in the British crime dramas and stuff like that. It'll be in the background. Maybe Luther, I might have heard it in Luther and a couple of other shows. Yeah, they definitely it can really set a scene.
So, that music, absolutely can. Yeah, so I love that album. I picked it just because it got me into the band, and it's always, there's always phases when I go through, and it's one of those bands that always comes back, and I always enjoyed it. And all 3, the 2 albums and the Dummy, the EP, and the self-titled album, and Third, which was their 3rd album, and this, I always get back to them, and they're just so beautiful.
Very cool. Great record. Great record.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I was going to say not dissimilar, but really very dissimilar.
Wait, someone try and track these albums like somewhere, on a linear scale. It's like,
I know, right? Kiss.
Yeah, totally
Alive.
similar.
Kiss Alive.
1975. Rob's got the air quotes up. Let's just say it straight out. Depending on which band member you ask at which time in history, they've all said, yep, the album was absolutely live. And they've all said, no, we overdubbed pretty much everything except for the drums and the audience. And even then, you can hear Eddie Kramer, the engineer. He cranks up the audience when he wants to. He's moving audience sounds around. He's proto-sampling on tape to make it more rocking. So, yeah, with that out of the way, I want to talk about this record because it is such an influential record and such a big deal. Not just for Kiss, but it was for Kiss. It was really their breakthrough album. It was their fourth album, essentially a greatest hits, drawn from the first three, and just shot them into the stratosphere. Now, I'm going to age myself here because I reckon out of the three of us, I think I'm the only one who's probably worn the Kiss makeup and played a tennis racket along with the records.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah, Rob?
Rob?
Well, look, my introduction to Kiss was via Donny Sutherland's Sounds,
Nice.
TV show on Channel 7 back in the day. And I got into them during the Unmasked era.
Okay.
That's showing
Too late.
my age.
Too late.
Yeah, so
Yeah, I thought so.
Shandy was a big, big song in my house at that time.
That's a cool song, Shane. Yeah.
But they'd already taken the mask off, so I could have just said, yeah, I dressed as Kiss too, but after they took the makeup off.
Did you put the black leather on, though? The leather coat?
Oh, Shandy. I think Shandy was a makeup song, though, wasn't it?
It wasn't Dynasty or Dynasty originally, I think, Shandy.
No, it was off Unmasked.
Was it on Unmasked?
Yeah,
Okay.
Unmasked,
Fair
yeah.
enough.
That and and She's So European. Oh.
I gotta say, I'm a Kiss fan here. There's probably something that people may not think of me, but Kiss fan
Wow.
here, yeah. I went when they did their big reunion concert back with Peter Criss and Ace Frehley with the makeup on. I was there.
Oh, okay.
I was there at Entertainment Centre. I stood. I remember this is again for the kids out there. In the days when you had to go to Ticket Tech to buy tickets.
Yes.
Yeah.
I lined up outside of Maya in Maroochydore, where the Ticket Tech was inside of Maya, which is like a department store kind of thing for the non-Australian listeners. And I lined up at, 7:30 in the morning, and I was like fifth from the front to go in to buy tickets. So we had, I went with my friend Michael, and we had tickets right up the front, really good tickets.
So to give people some context who might not know what that is, it's kind of like lining up for a COVID test in Sydney at the moment. That's what we used to have to do to buy concert tickets. Yeah. And you'd get turned away. Exactly. You get turned away because it's sold out. Or,
disappointed.
Yeah, you'd sit there and you go, they're putting a second show on sale. You can stay in the line.
Just there were more people with stonewashed jeans and mullets and Iron Maiden T-shirts and Kiss T-shirts. Yeah, that's.
I wish there was just as many people with masks back then, but
Yeah, that would have been good.
Would have been arrested.
Oh, that's great. Well, yeah, Kiss for me, I started playing guitar when I was 12, but I really got into music when I was about 10, I think. I think I've shared this before on the podcast with you guys, but I got a radio cassette player. So I used to tape songs off the radio and listen to AM radio, that kind of stuff. And so Kiss became a big deal. The first record I bought with my own money was the double vinyl Kiss Double Platinum, which I think that's probably around 81 or something. I can't remember when it came out. I probably got it in 81. And so Kiss Alive, so a huge album. This is the funny thing, especially about this record. I don't think there's ever been a more hyped, manufactured or merchandised band more than Kiss, right? But you get back to their roots, especially their early albums, and really they're just a hard rock band, a no frills hard rock band at that.
Yeah.
If you actually listen to the music, And on this album, I think they're smashing it. There are hits like Strutter and Juice, just cool riffs, cool, twin guitar riffs. Ace really sounds awesome on this record. He's got his Les Pauls plugged into some Marshall Super leads, and the secret weapon for him, he was using some sort of Damasio. It might have been a super distortion. There's some conjecture as whether he was using its super distortion quite yet, as he was known to, but he definitely had some hot-wired, high output pickups from Larry Damasio that was really pushing the Marshall
it
via
was,
the
It was
Les
so
Paul.
hot that there was smoke coming out of it and stuff.
Very occasionally. Actually, I saw Ace opening for Alice Cooper a couple of years ago, and he was doing all the shtick, the smoke and all the stuff.
Oh, this show, Kiss stage show is so cool.
Oh, the show, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, they are touring again. Hopefully, post COVID, they'll be able to finish their farewell tour. I'm not sure if I'm going to see this one. I might wait for the next one.
Yeah.
The next farewell tour, but
Fonzie style.
exactly. Anyway, Kiss Alive. It might be live. It's probably not live. But Ace sounds awesome. There's also some talk whether Ace actually did the overdubs because towards the end of his time with the band, he wasn't turning up to sessions. If he didn't like the songs, he just wouldn't play on them. And there's a whole list of session musicians who played guitar solos and things. But I think listening to it definitely sounds like Ace. I think he was still having a good time in the band at this stage. So
I think that was
Kiss Alive.
early enough, for him to still.
There was still fun to be had. Yeah. All right, let's move along. Rob, Pink Floyd Pulse.
All right. So, Pink Floyd Pulse, it's an amazing record. It's just looking at a few things, and with the actual live concert film and the album, it's sold well and truly. I can't get exact figures, but it's well over 5 million copies of this record.
Man.
At the time, they could have done anything. Their world tours were the biggest grossing world tours at the time. Like, nothing was even close. But yeah, it was their third live album, as it would happen. And it was released on the 29th of May, 1995. And it was on the Division Bell tour. So, Division Bell came out in 94. The most notable thing is that the second disc is completely from start to finish, top to bottom, Dark Side of the Moon. They just play it from you go to woe.
Yeah,
I don't know how many more cliches from start to finish I can throw in there, but that was 3. That was pretty good. But it's one of those records that I never got Pink Floyd. Like, it took me a long, long time to get past. There's a couple of bands that are really synonymous with the drug culture, and it took a lot for me to get into them. And Pink Floyd is one of those. But then I just kind of buried myself into this album. It might have been only 10 years ago. And just forced myself to listen to it from a purely like musician, guitar player, songwriter position. And it's their music's great. Is it all great? No. But, that you could say that about any band. But this album from start to finish is brilliant. Yeah. David Gilmour, we really don't even need to say anything about him, but he's like lead guitar, lead vocals, lap steel on this album. Nick Mason on drums and percussion. Richard Wright had returned by that point. He was playing keyboards. And then additional personnel. So Guy Pratt. You got Sam Brown, the great Sam Brown on vocals.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
That's cool.
Sam Brown's wonderful. Tim Rennick on guitar and backing vocals as well. It's just it's a great, huge band. And you look at the track listing, Shine On You Crazy Diamond, Astronomy,
hit
Donomy.
after hit. Yeah.
Yeah. And you just go, you can't really get it wrong. And it's really well recorded. And it runs at 145 minutes.
Yeah.
So, if you got a couple of hours to kill, it's a good way to do it. It's a good workout album, you know.
Have you guys, just on a quick side note, Guy Pratt, have you seen some of the YouTube stuff he did during lockdown? Because he put up, he'd been doing the videos where he showed what he played and
Oh, yeah.
He's been doing some really cool videos, actually, on stuff that he's been part of during lockdown.
And he's a cool dude. Like, he's a cool
funny dude,
storyteller,
yeah.
hey?
Yeah.
Definitely.
So
you know what?
Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say, with Floyd, I think I'm with you a little bit too, because, I mean, the early psychedelic stuff gets a lot of, I don't know, street cred, but I actually like this era of Pink Floyd probably the best.
Yeah.
So even the newer stuff they were writing around here, like Learning to Fly, I love that stuff. I thought it was really, really cool. And it was more big stadium rock with long solos, so what was there not to love? But I guess different from some of the early stuff, but I adored this era.
Yeah, and I think like Delicate Sound of Thunder came out, and I loved Dogs of War and On the Turning Away, and the addition of those two songs would have been great on this collection, but they're not. They're on something else. But they're just that era of Pink Floyd for me too. I really liked.
They're a bit of a funny band for me because I watching these live concerts, I really like it. But then listening to it without the concert footage, just the audio, I don't know, I skip and I kind of go, But when you see the whole thing, and the plane flying into the wall and all that sort of stuff, I mean, that was different. I think, was that no, that was a different concert. Was that one with that plane? Anyway, but the massive stage show and that they do and all the lasers and all the lights and all that stuff, it kind of puts you in the mood to watch this kind of stuff. But then, then I put it on in the car driving home and I kind of, skip. That's just, I don't know if that's just me or, Yeah,
because that's probably what turned me off it, that everyone went, oh, you need to drop a trip and watch all the visuals to really understand Pink Floyd. So I went,
and put the Wizard of Oz on.
I'm not going to do that. And it just took a while to just sit down and appreciate it for the composition of the music rather than feel like, I have to get into this whole culture of, lasers and smoke and drugs. And, so it took a bit.
Yeah, same. Yeah, I'm the same, yeah.
But I thought this was the third incarnation of Pink Floyd, but it's actually the fourth if you count Richard Wright leaving and then coming back. So you obviously have the first era of Pink Floyd, which is Sid Barrett.
Yeah.
And then he goes and you have David Gilmour come in, and then you have Richard Wright go, and then Roger Waters go, and then come back, and then Richard Wright come back in. It's a great concert. It's a great CD. Fun fact is that the original release of Pulse came with a flashing LED light that was powered by a AA battery. And for just stupid tech fact that they used a now discontinued LM3909 LED flasher IC. So,
yes, that one, of course.
All the nerds out there that are into chips, and they're no longer available. So if you're sitting on some of them, you can maybe recondition some old Pulse CDs and make a fortune.
And wasn't that also that era when they had this mystery where there were these hidden messages in the artwork and in the thing behind? Wasn't that same era as well?
Yeah, there are. Apparently, there's an owl hidden in if you put the two sides together, and there's time. I think there's references to songs. I was talking to my mate Charlie about it this afternoon. I was quizzing him on the album, and he said, there's all little pieces of artwork and stuff in the album cover if you go looking.
Yeah.
Paul is dead.
Paul is dead. One of those.
Yes.
Wrong band. That's later.
So,
from England.
If you haven't heard this one, go check it out. I think it's probably Pink Floyd at their best live. And you get Dark Side of the Moon as a bonus.
All right, Gabor, Nirvana, Unplugged, sort of.
All right. Well, speaking of highly selling live albums, this one is quite a high-selling live album. So Nirvana Unplugged, I mean, do I really need to talk about it much? It's talking about iconic live albums. It's probably one of the most iconic live albums of the 90s, probably. Is it? Am I the only one who thinking that?
Yeah, way up there.
It's way up there. So it was released on November 1st, 1994, which was 7 months after Kurt Cobain's death.
Yeah,
it was recorded on November 18, 1993 at Sony Music Studios in New York City. It was shown on MTV on December 16th, 1993. I'm just reading it. Possibly one of the most iconic live performances of the 90s. Some magazines rated it as one of the greatest live albums of all times. That's
wow.
Yeah, that's when they did that in the late 90s, early 2000s. Rob's face, yeah, you got to see it.
You can't see it on the podcast.
No. You need the special glasses.
If you want it, send us a message and I'll shoot you a screenshot for reference.
For only $2, you can. It won Nirvana the only Grammy Award as well, the 1996 Grammy Award. It sold, again, hard to find exact numbers, around 15 million albums worldwide, which for a live album is pretty crazy. I think it's the third biggest MTV Unplugged. I think Eric Clapton Unplugged has sold the most. It's like almost 30 million now that they've sold.
Yeah.
But 15 million for a live album. It's crazy. So, I mean, there's not all that much to say. It's one of the main things sort of is they had big struggles with MTV because Kurt didn't want to play the big hits. MTV wanted them to do the big hits. Yeah. He almost walked last minute. He almost didn't do the show, but then was talked into it and did the show. And I think the world is a better place for him doing it. I remember seeing clips on TV and I was going to go, when is it finally coming out? And I bought it on glorious VHS when it came out.
Wow, nice.
I mean, I was a massive Nirvana fan, Kurt Cobain fan. I was a massive fan also in Utero, which is an album that we're going to talk about in an upcoming iconic podcast, album podcast for sure. One of the other big things about this whole thing, which is really nothing to do with the actual performance, is the guitar. The most expensive guitar of all times, the 1959 Martin D18E, which Kurt Cobain bought in late 93 at Voltage Guitars in LA, just a couple of months before the Unplugged gig, most likely because of the Unplugged gig because that was sort of already in the making. It's a super rare guitar, actually. It's it's number 7 of 302 that Martin made with the 2 Diamond pickups on it. It was the first model that featured electric pickups in a Martin that was ever made. And it sold at Julian's, the auction house, for $6,010,000 US. So, and I think they said around about 9 million Australian dollars, which is just crazy. And was bought by an Australian, by Peter Friedman, the founder of Rode Microphones.
Rode Mics, yeah.
Rode Mics. And just to give you just a quick idea as well, a year before, the cardigan Kurt Cobain wore at the MTV Unplugged, that green cardigan, was sold for $334,000 US, making it the most expensive cardigan or sweater of all time.
Wow. What would have Kurt Cobain made of all this?
He would have hated it.
Yeah,
he would have absolutely hated it for sure. One other thing I quickly want to just touch on. Kurt was really, really, really worried about playing acoustic guitar. So in a first, also for MTV Unplugged, they actually put an amp there. So there was a Fender Twin Reverb that was hidden behind a thing to make it look like a monitor, like a foldback monitor. Yeah. And they actually, with a DI, they split it. So apparently on the recording, it's mostly the direct sound with some of the amp mixed in every once in a while. But in the recording, he only heard the guitar through the amp. And he was also allowed to use his DS1 or DS2, an EHX small clone chorus to get some distortion for some solos. Men Who Sold the World and Come As You Are and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And that was a big thing as well, but he really wanted it and he was really nervous about performing. And just, I mean, one last quick thing. So he didn't like two last things. He didn't like the sound of the Diamond pickups on it, so he put a Bartolini 3AV sound hole pickup in it, which is what you hear. That and, of course, the transducer.
Cool pickups there.
Cool, yeah. And probably one of the most iconic songs on that recording is Pennyroyal Tea, which they did a whole bunch of trials basically during the rehearsal. It always sounded like crap, never worked. And then when they were recording it, they basically, I think there's, you can hear it, Kurt Cobain saying, where is it? Am I going to do this by myself? And then Dave Grohl replied, yeah, do it by yourself. And Kurt Cobain joked, if it sounds bad, these people are just going to have to wait. And he recorded it just playing by himself. And it's become sort of a probably one of the most iconic, and his voice sort of breaking and cracking. And just, again, the Kurt Cobain biographer Charles Cross said this was probably Kurt Cobain's single greatest moment on stage. Writing that, like all the high water marks in his career, it came at a time when he seemed to be destined to fail. So that's Nirvana Unplugged.
Well, the song that's endured, right, Triple M have carried for 20 years is their Bowie cover.
Oh, The Man Who Sold the World, which is great too. Yeah.
You know, that's the one that when I think of that album, that's what I hear just from radio.
Yeah. I mean, my favourite cut is About a Girl, the Beatlesque.
Yeah.
I think it's the opening track,
the first track, yeah.
Yeah. It's awesome.
Did his guitar tech get fired after that performance?
No, I think he had the one guitar tech throughout his whole career.
Because there's always the discussion on his guitar being out of tune pretty much throughout that whole thing, right?
What's being in tune and out of tune?
Yeah, I guess.
Pish posh.
What's a few notes?
It's all part of the...
it's part of the fun.
The luster.
Yeah.
We're going to take a short break. We'll be back with some more live iconic albums. This episode is brought to you by Fretboard Biology, the comprehensive online guitar course put together by Joe Elliott, ex-head of guitar at the Guitar Institute of Technology and the McNally Smith College of Music. I was one of the beta testers for the course and can say as a music educator, I was really impressed by the logical sequence of learning. The course has also been endorsed by players such as Brett Garsed and Greg Koch. For more details, check out the links in our show notes. Welcome back to Iconic Live Albums. We're talking about some of our favourite live records. We're going to keep moving along. Next up, Peter Frampton. Frampton Comes Alive. This was recorded in 1975. It was released in 76, and it's probably one of the biggest selling live albums of all time. Certainly a huge breakthrough for Peter Frampton as a solo artist. And I was surprised researching this because I've always loved the record, but it was recorded with a 4-piece band. And it sounds so full and beautifully produced. And unlike Kiss, quote unquote, alive, apparently there were minimal overdubs. But it's just a 4-piece band at the top of their game, sounding amazing. Frampton's vocal is incredible, and he's playing all the guitar solos and sounds amazing. That said, shout out to Bob Mayo, who's the rhythm guitarist, and it's just an excellent Rhodes and Hammond player. I know we dig those vintage keyboard sounds here on the podcast, and he's smashing out on that. But massive hits. Show Me the Way, which I just think is still the number one road trip song. I could just put that on repeat for ages. When I was getting ready for this episode a few days ago, I think I had that song on rotation for about half an hour at least, and I was still not sick of it. It's so good. Baby, I Love Your Way, and the super jam, Do You Feel Like We Do, were the three big hits from this record. And I know we've talked a lot about the voice box on it was the Foo Fighters episode, I think.
Every time I just can't not think of it. Every time
I know what you're going to say.
Do you feel? I see him push the button, the pedal that says pig on it in The Simpsons. And where's the pig?
Simpsons episode.
That's great.
I just love the pedal that says pig on it. Sorry, it's just I can't not think of that when I hear those words. But anyway,
he's in a pretty unique cast, isn't he? Of rock stars that have been on The Simpsons.
On The Simpsons,
definitely.
yeah.
So yeah, that's cool. And yeah, is it Homer freaking out when the voice box kicks in because it sounds like a voice? And hang on, it's his guitar talking to me.
That was. I mean, nothing to do with Peter Frampton really, but that was one of the best Simpsons episodes, I reckon. The Hullabalooba or whatever what they called it.
That was a big festival.
There was a
wasn't it?
festival tour that he joined, and yeah, with the Smashing
Love
Pumpkins and all. Anyway.
So good. Anyway, this is it's a twin album. It's really interesting actually. Each side's kind of got its own kind of vibe. So side A of record 1 or side 1 of record A, it's kind of rocking, and then the flip side of that's got the more acousticy kind of vibe stuff with "Baby I Love You" way on there and some other stuff. They do a great version of "Jumping Jack Flash," the Rolling Stones tune, which Frampton had already recorded on an earlier album, a studio version.
Okay.
But he kicks it out. But man, he is rocking. He's playing a 54 Les Paul Custom that had been modded with 3 humbuckers. The P90s, the original P90s, had been removed. He's playing through an Ampeg Echo Twin, which is a stereo, probably one of the first or one of the earliest stereo amps, I guess. Stereo combos, which is mainly what we're hearing in the mix. There was a Marshall on stage, a Super Lead. From what I can gather, mostly we're hearing the Ampeg, and the Marshall was on stage just to be loud, pretty much. The Ampeg was only 30 watts. And if you check out a rig rundown, I don't know if he's still playing the Ampegs, but I knew he was until relatively recently. He'd put them in an isolation box and run those. And you can definitely hear it in stereo. I think it's just like a reverb is in one side and not in the other, something like that. But it still feels stereo, which I guess makes some of that bigness that I was talking about earlier. He's got a talk box, of course, and he's got a Leslie. And that's pretty much it. What I love about this record, especially the rock and stuff, you can hear him working the volume pot to clean up the tone, and then he's cranking it for solos and big power chords and stuff. But he sounds awesome, man. He sounds awesome. He kind of strikes me like a 1970s John Mayer or a Keith Urban in that he was a massive pop star, but also like a really serious guitar player. So there'd be, I'd imagine, a large slab of the audience would turn up, not aware he's going to melt their faces with his guitar playing.
Well, he came out of Humble Pie, man. So he was the guitar player in Humble Pie, and Stevie Marriott was the singer. So Humble Pie, like worldwide, probably not a huge name, but they had some success, obviously, in the UK.
More in Europe,
and a little bit in America, and it filtered through to Australia. But I always thought this album, and he's admitted it, was recorded live in the studio.
Really?
Yeah. Almost pretty certain it was recorded live in the studio, and the audience noise was added. It's one of those ones, he's never shied away from it. I'm pretty sure he's always admitted that it was recorded live in the studio, but it was all recorded live. Like, no, they didn't really overdub anything, but it's one of those things, one of those tricky things of the 70s that they did.
Yeah, well, I mean, the 70s live album was really a big event. I mean, nowadays where you can access almost anything live, at least through YouTube. But wow. All right. Well, 2 out of 3 of my albums are not really very live so far, but they have more crowd sounds. Oh, there you go. But a great record nonetheless. And Frampton, made him a massive, massive household name.
Yeah.
All right. Let's keep going here. Hendrix is an artist we covered recently on the show. Rob, you've got Band of Gypsies for Hendrix Live.
Now, this obviously came out after he passed away because it was recorded on... it was recorded over a couple of nights, but mostly on the 1st of January 1970 at the Fillmore East. And it was, again, Hendrix in trio mode after coming off Woodstock with a big band, Gypsy Sun and Rainbows, and that kind of... He'd sort of dipped his toe in the water with that sort of thing. Yeah, but he pulled it back to do these shows at the Fillmore East with Billy Cox on bass and Buddy Miles on drums. It's a very different kind of set. It doesn't have his huge hits in it. And it was filmed. So I've got a DVD of this where they found all the old, they thought the footage was lost. And they've sort of pieced the whole show together from some sort of horrible black and white footage from a camera up in the bleachers. And then they've got stage shots, and it's killer. And it's been remastered and it sounds amazing. But at the time, Hendrix was really trying to connect with the African-American people in his home country of the United States. So this was kind of a bit of a statement band, the three African-Americans on stage playing politically driven music like Machine Gun, Changes, Power to Love, Message to Love, all those sorts of things. And because it was being recorded, on the footage you can see Hendrix, he doesn't really do any of his antics. He stands very still on stage. It's a very measured performance, and he really just wanted to concentrate on playing well and keeping everything together. So there's none of the fireworks, gimmicky stuff, playing with his teeth behind his head. Like, there's none of that. It's really simple. And because of that, it's probably his sort of shining light as far as live performances go. You can argue he, as a full show or little moments in the past, he's had better moments like Monterey Pop Festival or Isle of Wight or Woodstock. But as a whole show, he's almost impeccable. For me, that the guitar in Who Knows is the sound that I want to go out on stage with. If I could choose a guitar sound to go out on stage and do my own thing and not have to sound like this or sound like that, I would probably go for that guitar sound. It's beautiful. It's got the univibe. It's got the octava or octavia. And it's loud and punchy, and it's distorted and fuzzy but clean. It's just amazing, and it's a power trio record like you wouldn't believe. Machine Gun is obviously, extremely a powerful song, and the message and the performance of that is great. Eddie Kramer, studio mixing engineer. Bob Ludwig, who we've talked about before, mastering engineer. And it's funny, Hendrix didn't like this record, and he self-produced it, and he really struggled to put it out because this was recorded for a contract. So he needed to provide an album for a contract that he was trying to get out of.
Okay.
So it was done for that. I think it was Jack Douglas had signed him to a multi-album deal, and he still needed to present them with a record. So that's what this one was. It received mixed reviews, mostly because they thought that the band didn't sound together, and that but I think it was probably more because the hits weren't there. Because when it originally came out, years later, they put Foxy Lady, a version of that on it, and Hear My Trainer Coming, but it was really all new songs, and Billy Cox singing, and a Buddy Miles song. So, but as a live record and as a little snapshot into Hendrix, just a mere weeks or a month before he passed away. It's really telling, and it's a fantastic little showpiece for him, I think.
Yeah. Definitely. With all that showbiz stuff he was putting to the side, there's stories musically as well that he was planning to work with. I think it was Gil Evans, the arranger, and it's really interesting to think where he might have ended up musically in the following years.
Didn't George Benson say that if he would still be alive, he'd probably be like the greatest jazz guitar player ever, or something? It was something like that.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
Amazing, but cool record and a good snapshot, especially as we covered, his first album, Are You Experienced, a few episodes ago, and this is essentially his last living one. Hey, Jack Douglas, was Jack Douglas?
Yeah, I think so. I'm just off the top of my head from the book I read years ago. It's a different Jack Douglas though than the one I think you're thinking of.
I'm thinking of the producer who still released a lot of Hendrix stuff
Yeah,
after his death, and pretty controversially, got other musicians in and overdubbed and did all sorts of things for the recording.
Yeah,
just keep churning out the material.
He was pretty horrible to Hendrix. Just wanted to make money off him, and Hendrix just knew that and wanted out. And so in order to get out, he had to give a few records to him, and I think there was a greatest hits, and there was a couple of live records that they gave him, and but tragic story. But for this to be his bookended, record of his last, one of his last live performances, I think it is, it's the encyclopedia of Hendrix. One record, one live record.
Yeah, awesome, excellent. All right, let's keep going here. Rammstein live aus Berlin.
Well, let's
who picked this one?
Let's change the mood a little bit. So Rammstein live aus Berlin. Now I picked that one. That, like Porter said, that's kind of the album that got me into the band, and this came through another friend of mine, my friend Michael Dutton. I don't know if you're listening, Michael. Hello. I'm actually going to be doing a band gig with him. This is so rare for me to do a band gig next month.
Nice.
Anyway.
Is this the Australian Rammstein show?
The Australian exactly. Yes.
Nice.
Being a big buff guy who speaks German.
You're the guy. In. How do you pronounce the name? I feel like I'm doing it wrong.
Rammstein. Okay. And you got to say it with that voice. Rammstein. Okay. Yeah. Anyway,
I'll practice later.
Yeah. We'll do a private, lesson thing.
And I'll practice setting myself on fire.
Well, and that's one of the things I love about that band. It's just the theatrics. If you watch the concert, there is some slightly, maybe rated MA plus kind of stuff or R stuff going on, but there's also the show is fantastic. So Rammstein, a German band, originates from Berlin. This is basically a live album that was part of a tour for their second album, which was kind of the massive breakthrough album, which was a tour that ended up lasting 4 years of almost non-stop touring worldwide.
Wow.
Which made them go from a relatively unknown band in Germany that sort of was part of a new wave of music called Neue Deutsche Härte, which means new German hard music stuff. Hardness. I don't know. That sounds maybe a little bit wrong as well, but heavy, new German heavy hard music. It sort of propelled them to being a massive worldwide band. And they are in the, tens of millions of albums selling bands now. So they are, and stadium filling bands. So the band formed in Berlin in 1994. It's sort of that style of music was a style of music combining bits of metal, but then also bits of almost like industrial and techno.
Yeah.
It's sort of very groove based. So there is almost like a techno groove to it. Actually, great drummer, really, really good drummer to do it in a band. But so you've got a keyboard player and sort of synth guy who does a lot of electronic stuff. Then you've got the two buff, muscly German chugga guitar player dudes. The bass player usually has lots of gaffer tape around his head. And the big buff singer up the front who blows things up and fire everywhere and is on fire himself and
rock and roll,
super rock and roll. And in the early days, and during that tour, the singer he did all the stage pyrotechnics himself. So it was all him doing it himself. And there's a lot of pyrotechnics if you watch it. So basically, they formed in Berlin in 1994. They won a local band competition that same year, which won them some studio time, basically. They recorded a demo, sent it to a bunch of labels, got signed to Motor Music through sending out these demos, released the first album in 95, and then did lots of touring in the sort of German-speaking area in Germany, Austria, Switzerland, but also going into France and sort of Central Europe mainly. 97, they released their second album called Sehnsucht, and it debuted at #1 in Germany and Austria, and like I said, it turned into a 4-year-long tour that made them huge worldwide. And this was sort of right in the middle of that, just as they were getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And it was their biggest concert to date, playing in front of 17,000 people. So this was, did I mention that? Released August 31, 1999, and recorded at 2 nights in Berlin on August 22nd and 23rd in 1998. And both nights, full capacity, which was about 17,000 people. So, I mean, their band, again, acquired taste. Whether you're into that kind of stuff or not sure. I love the mix of the electronic, the beats, the kind of that sort of techno style or electronic music style kind of soundscapes that the dude on the keyboards is creating.
Yeah. I mean, that era too, like we're looking at 9 Inch Nails, that kind of
White Zombie.
industrial flavor.
White Zombie, yes, that sort of similar sort of thing.
Yeah.
And I mean, again, White Zombie, actually just recently I started listening to White Zombie again. I used to love White Zombie and Rob Zombie. I love his solo stuff, and I love 9 Inch Nails. So, I love that sort of stuff and combining these sort of elements, but combining it very, very groove-based, sort of 4 on the floor, beats,
You can dance to it, or you could set yourself on fire to it.
Whichever one you want. Well, and I mean, that's a cool thing, like songs like, if you watch the song Rammstein, which is the song named after themselves, it's got this big electronic intro, and then the singer comes up, it's sort of an elevator part that comes up on stage, and he's standing there in a coat, which is on fire, and he sings the whole song on fire. I mean, just that, how cool is that? And then there's another thing, has his boots that shoot rockets everywhere, and then he has his big bow and arrow that shoots rockets everywhere, and it's just great. I just love the theatrics. I love, and there's some, again, more mature rated stuff that's going on as well in one or two songs. But I mean, watch it because it's great. The thing is, a lot of people take it, I think, like all that sort of stuff, if you take it too serious, then, you're an idiot, in my opinion. But you need to look at it sort of at, don't take it too seriously.
Please send your letters to the Guitar Speak podcast, care of Gabor, Josika.
Yeah, me again.
PO Box.
I'll forward them on.
Yeah, forward it on to me. No, but you know what I mean. It's one of those things. Don't take it too seriously. Just watch it for what it is. And it's just, I don't think, if you listen to interviews with them, there's a lot of German interviews with them, but if you listen to English interviews with them, they don't take themselves very seriously either. And it's an act, They're very soft-spoken people when you listen to interviews. And, they don't wear black outfits and stuff like that. They're normal people, but they just do this massive stage show, and it's just part of it, and they just play heavy music. And the other thing I just wrote down, just for the guitarists out there, rhythm guitarist Paul Landers, in those days mostly played, or Paul Landers, it would be said, plays Music Man Axis guitars. Nice. Lead guitarist Richard Kruspe plays ESP, has been playing ESP for ages, has now a signature ESP, which has almost a bit of a Mosrite kind of look to it. Both are Mesa Boogie guys, so dual rectifiers, and some Engel amps maybe every once in a while in there as well. And Richard Kruspe, the lead guitarist, has his own signature series amp plugin through Native Instruments, which is called Ramfire, where they sampled his studio amp, which is
great.
Dual rectifier, and you can have his sort of sound. So that's that. Have any of you guys ever listened to Rammstein before?
Not heaps, but I have heard some. I will say the guitars are brutal.
Yeah,
and hearing metal sung in German makes it like twice as scary.
Yeah. And the funny thing is, the thing is, a lot of the stuff he says, I mean, there's some darker stuff too, but when you listen to interviews, he took a lot of inspiration from Marlene Dietrich, the old, oldie singer. And I mean, she's not metal, but he wanted that sort of voice, that kind of low, spoken, very sort of like this, kind of voice. Yeah. And he took a lot of influences from Marlene Dietrich. So, I mean, that's coming again from a ye oldie kind of
Yeah,
German
yeah.
folk songs almost, kind of thing.
Yep.
So,
It's that vaudeville,
yeah.
kind of influence.
and
Yeah.
it's performing. It's just art, performing art, basically. That's what they do. And they just do it a little bit different to what most other people would do.
Yeah, I don't know much about him, but I remember I'm coming across as a guy who watches lots of TV, but
Hey,
Channel-
that's the musician's life,
yeah,
isn't it?
Channel V at the height of their popularity, and they would go on the road with Big Day Out. So
Yeah.
you'd get to see behind the scenes of the Big Day Out, and you'd see a song here or two or a set of someone, and that's kind of where I got exposed to Rammstein, was
Yeah.
on that, and they were obviously just showing where he sets himself on fire, and it's crazy. But yeah, it was a carnival on stage. It was awesome.
Oh, it's a massive stage show. Massive stage show.
I saw 9 Inch Nails in, I think it was the 2000 Big Day Out. It was such a good year. There was Chili Peppers, Foo Fighters, Blink, all the Aussie bands as well. But there was the dual stages at the Sydney Showgrounds. And so the crowd on the floor, I was back in the stadium, but the crowd on the floor would kind of merge towards whichever band they wanted to see most. So there was just this sea of black in front of the 9 Inch Nails stage.
It was
before they came on. You could just see it slowly merge over. It was epic.
I saw 9 Inch Nails in maybe 95, 6, 5
Okay,
at Alternative Nations. Does anyone remember there was one
Oh, yeah.
tour? And it had like Faith No More and anyway, and it was the same. It was the two stages. Yeah. And I think it was 9 Inch Nails and then it was Faith No More after. Or maybe it was Faith No More and then 9 Inch Nails. They were the two last acts. Yeah. And they always, the stage where the bands didn't play, they had this massive curtain that was closed. And then you had and they were setting up behind that. And I remember 9 Inch Nails came on and they had this sort of pulsating electronic beats and lights flashing behind the curtain. And then you could see someone, and there were big screens too, and you could see someone, which was Trent Reznor, jumping at the big curtain. And he was just yanking at it, pulling it, and he ripped the whole curtain and about half of the lighting rig down. And that's how 9 Inch Nails started the show. It was fantastic, and it absolutely trashed everything on stage. It was fantastic.
I had a mate who worked on that tour, like the booking, like tour managing, and it was an abject failure.
Oh, yeah.
Pretty much the whole thing got rained out. It was like record rain that year and just followed the tour around.
Yeah.
And it was a complete bust. So it only happened once.
But such good bands. And Chili Peppers were meant to be on it, but I think Anthony Kiedis and Stone Temple Pilots were meant to be on it too. But it was a great, I mean, this has nothing to do with Rammstein, but it was a great lineup. And anyway, go check out Rammstein.
Rammstein. Well, not dissimilar to Rammstein, our next album, Dire Straits, On the Night.
Almost the same.
I'm glad you made that. I
1993.
thought I was going to be the only one who could draw parallels between those two. But good job.
I mean, what other podcast, really, in the world could you have Hendrix followed by Rammstein, followed by Dire Straits?
You are not going to get this anywhere else, ladies and gentlemen.
Only place in the world.
It's a cultural revolution here, folks.
Absolutely.
It is. Now, Dire Straits On the Night 93. I saw that tour, so I've got a soft spot for this live album. For me, I mean, the whole idea of a greatest hits album, I've been toying with bringing a Dire Straits record to this series. But the trip up for me has been I mean, Mark Knopfler's had many phases in his career, but I've got two main ones in Dire Straits. It's Mark Knopfler mainly playing a Strat, and then it's Mark Knopfler playing a lot of Les Paul. And I love both kind of eras. So if I chose one album, I'd be just missing out on a whole other side that I really like. So this album kind of straddles that, although still not as much as I'd like. But anyway, it was recorded in 93. It was Dire Straits touring after their final album, which was called On Every Street. So that came out early 90s. And it followed up the mega hit that was Brothers in Arms with Money for Nothing and all that stuff on there. So I love Dire Straits. In fact, I've got, for the people at home with the special glasses. I've got my Dire Straits.
Tab book.
Brothers in Arms. Well, pre-Tab, before Tab was popular. I bought this in 84, and all the solos have been notated in musical notation, which took me a long time to work out.
Oh, yeah.
So you can see that. That stain is cricket bat oil, linseed oil. So my two great loves in the 80s were guitars and cricket bats. Okay. So this album had a lot of hits from Brothers in Arms. Had a few tunes from On Every Street, which are not bad tunes, but not the mega hits. But for the oldies, there was Telegraph Road and Romeo and Juliet, and those tunes went for about 10 minutes each. Just super long, extended versions of already long songs. And there's a little bit of the older Dire Straits guitars and that kind of tones. But man, killer band. Phil Palmer on rhythm guitar, who also played with Clapton for many years. Oh my gosh, I've got to look this up and drop it in. There was a pedal steel player on the tour, because at this stage Knopfler had just started the Notting Hill Billies. He was getting really into the whole Nashville scene, and even though there was some country influences in some of his playing, he was really exploring it on those albums. So I've got to look this up. I should have written it down. Dire Straits.
It's cool because I was never a big Dire Straits fan. Obviously, Brothers in Arms was everywhere, and Money for Nothing, great. But I really liked that era with Calling Elvis and Heavy Fuel. I thought both of those songs were killer. And is that kind of like the Les Paul era for him? Because it was much more of a distorted, heavier tone on that On Every Street record.
Definitely. And I mean, on Brothers in Arms, he's got the Les Paul out for, Money for Nothing and the title track Brothers in Arms, which is, I think it's just absolutely beautiful phrasing and tone. He's into that, the green out of phase kind of tone, with the two humbuckers out of phase to each other. It's fantastic.
Because speaking of him live, he played that live at Nebworth. Was either late 80s, early 90s, and he got up and he played a couple of songs with Clapton's band was the backing band. And that was killer. He played a guitar on that.
Was it Valley Arts? Did he play Valley Arts guitars for a little while?
He played Pensa Sir for a while.
Pensa Sir, not Valley Arts. That's right. Before
so the Flame Maple, Floyd, but without a bar.
Yeah, because it kind of looks like a Tom Anderson or something, doesn't it?
It's that kind of vibe, absolutely.
Yeah.
And live, he was playing that guitar a lot. He was playing the Les Paul a lot. He still got the Strat out for all the hits, all the Sultans of Swing, Tunnel of Love era, which I really love. But yeah, and then by On Every Street, there's a lot of Les Paul going on there. It's like he discovered them in the mid '80s and made some cool stuff out of it.
Yeah, good decision, a great decision.
I just remember. I remember when we first got
the Rob Rhodes story.
I remember when we first got MTV when I still lived in Austria in the late '80s, '89 maybe, something like that. The two Money for Nothing and is it Walk of Life? Is that the other one? Where it's all the like sports injuries and cars and
that was the video. It was a great video.
That was non-stop on MTV.
Yeah.
That was just every third video was one of those.
Yeah, they were
That's
great
all I
videos.
remember from that.
Money for Nothing had the really cool kind of animated video.
Yeah, the square, like almost a Minecraft looking.
Yeah,
Max Headroom, and then Sting.
Singing
that.
Yeah.
So good, man. And
wasn't that just? I mean, totally, again, unrelated to the live album. Wasn't that just because he recorded in a studio next door or something like that? Wasn't that the story? That's why he came. Sting recorded in the studio next door to Dire Straits, and they met up in the kitchen area or something like that. And then Mark Knopfler invited him, and he did that. I want my MTV.
Nice.
I think that's
cool.
Is that I'm pretty sure that's the story.
Well,
it is.
Good. It is now.
It is now.
Yeah,
it's fact. If I say it's fact.
It's on. I'm updating Wikipedia as we speak. It's done.
To tie in with the episodes, I like that.
I've referenced you and this podcast as
as
the factual check.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Paul Franklin was the pedal steel player on that tour, and he played on the On Every Street album.
Okay.
But hearing him rip on stuff like Money for Nothing was awesome. Like he'd pull out like a distorted tone a la who's the dude? Robert Randolph, that kind of thing. But he'd also do more country stuff and more atmospheric. So that was real. I really loved hearing that. But I've got to say, the greatest Dire Straits live album never released was the simulcast, and I think I might have mentioned this somewhere on a podcast, simulcast from their final Sydney show in 1986. And this is when, on the Brothers in Arms tour, they were probably maybe the biggest band in the world. And they did show after show at the City Entertainment Centre, and they kept adding shows, and they did 20-something shows, breaking Elton John's record or something. So by the last show, there wasn't anyone left in Australia that hadn't seen the show live, but just in case, they simulcast it on TV on Channel 9 or something, and got one of the FM stations, I think it was Triple M, to play the music. I guess it's the equivalent of a live stream.
Yeah.
But back in the mid-'80s, this was a massively big deal. So I got my little tape deck out, and I put it near the speaker, the mono speaker of the stereo, not the stereo, of my TV.
Yeah.
Because kids' TVs only had one speaker back then.
Well, that was the thing, wasn't it? Because I remember those too. You watch it on TV, but then you have the radio with the two speakers on if it's simulcast. Yeah. And so you listen to it through the radio, so you hear the music better, but you watch it on TV. And then often there'd be a little bit of a lag as well. It wouldn't be quite in sync.
Yeah.
But, I mean, that was all part of it.
It was great, buffering. Because everyone had half-decent hi-fis back then. So, like, my parents had a half-decent hi-fi. So compared to what even if you had a big TV back then, like, 15 inches or 20... That was a big TV.
Yeah. And then it was, but it was about 30 inches deep as well.
Yeah, that's right. But it had a tiny little 3-inch speaker in it. So when they did the simulcasts, and we've talked about these before, we talked about the John Farnham one. And,
the Farnham, that's right.
That you just crank the stereo and sit in front of the TV. It was just amazing. Like,
it's magical.
Those days have been lost.
Kids nowadays, they just don't know what they're missing.
And they just go on YouTube and watch someone who's recorded on their phone distorted.
While sitting on the toilet,
This band sucks. Yeah. So, and I had that cassette for years and years until I wore it out, and I knew how they ended all these songs that were fade-outs on the record. So if ever I played some of those songs live, I still do Money for Nothing in some bands, that gets called. I still remember how they ended it in the Sydney show back then. And I just found it on YouTube. It's been posted on YouTube a couple of times.
Okay.
So I'm super stoked. Anyway, that's Dire Straits on the Night, 93. Mark Knopfler. Dude, what a player. Let's move along. Rob, we're up to you now. You've got something special to toss in the mix now.
I do. So because we were talking about live albums, I put it to our followers on my Living in the 70s Facebook page for them to vote for their favourite live album of the 70s. And I put up for grabs a little merch pack for people who voted, and if they voted for the winning one. So I'm happy to announce that the winning album, which I knew would be the case when we started, and Matt, you were onto this on the comment section too, was Neil Diamond's Hot August Night.
Yes.
It won by twice as many votes as the second place Deep Purple Made in Japan. And then your selection tonight, Frampton Comes Alive, came in third. So the winner, I'll give Trixie Wilson a shout out. She won a t-shirt and a Living in the 70s stubby cooler.
Yeah, Trixie.
And we'll get that out to her. But thanks to everyone who voted and got involved in the discussion. There was some really great records put up, including Billy Thorpe's Live at Sunbury, Neil Young Live Rust, and
yes.
The Rolling Stones Get Your Ya-Ya's out. So that got quite a few votes too. And unfortunately, with one vote, is my next album. How's that for a segue?
Was that what were you the vote?
No, I abstained from voting.
Before we get to your one vote album, Rob, thanks for doing that. That was awesome seeing all those records and so many Living in the 70s fans jump in. It was unreal. So I just wanted to join in. I wasn't trying to win anything, but I did want to just push Neil Diamond over the line. The reason being, if I could just quickly indulge myself, is that every Christmas my family went to holidays, same place, same caravan park in our pop-up caravan. We had a big old caravan. It just lived at the caravan park. We never took it anywhere. And on rotation, every night, on a cassette player that just went on loop, was Neil Diamond's Hot August Night. So I would hear that. Oh, yes. Oh, man. I'd hear that album 3 or 4 times every night on holidays. We'd never play it when we were at home. It was just Christmas holidays, couple of weeks. And I love that record.
So is that now you're getting in the swing of Christmas album? It's like, okay, got to get in the Christmas mood. Let's put on some Neil Diamonds.
Did you put a sticker over it that just said Hot December Nights?
Yeah, we did. That's what we did.
Yeah,
and then
I thought so.
It was
Makes
great.
sense.
So barbecue dinner, then you play cards until midnight and just listen to Neil Diamond. But that's when I realised, I thought, what's he saying? Because he says all that, like, good Lord and all these really cool things. But throughout the night, he's gone, Richie, or take it rich. And he's talking about Richard Bennett, the lead guitarist.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
And I just thought that was the coolest. You'd say Richie and then Richie. That's great. Anyway. Richard Bennett ended up playing with Mark Knopfler for many, many years, as well as his sideman, as his solo career. Anyway, thanks Living in the 70s fans. You've come up with a heap of albums I wish I picked for tonight, but we'll revisit this idea, I think, in the future.
But now we're going to do one that you guys didn't want us to do.
What's the one vote one?
Well, one vote, a very astute follower of Living in the 70s, obviously of like the highest class and taste that there is. But yeah, my last pick was Led Zeppelin's Song Remains the Same. Obviously it's a more famous film than the record. The record was released as a soundtrack. So maybe I'm going to probably talk about the film more than the album. Because how can you go past John Bonham in a drag car, John Paul Jones dressed as movie. Like, the Knights of the Round Table. There's just Robert Plant down by a stream with his, swimming around with his kids, and Jimmy Page doing weird, occult things. It's a crazy film.
Oh yeah,
but
I've never seen it.
Really? Oh man, you got to get into the No Quarter. Start there.
Okay.
Start with No Quarter. I don't think it's on YouTube because you can't get any Led Zeppelin stuff on YouTube.
I have it on VHS.
Not even Rick Beato. Rick Beato can't even get Led Zeppelin stuff on there.
That's that then.
Beato. Check out Little Stinkers, by the way.
Yeah.
The new Kid Rock with Monster Truck.
Yeah.
Oh, too good.
Yeah.
Too good.
Anyway, I digress. Led Zeppelin, the song remains the same. Now, It kicks off with the only way you could kick off a Led Zeppelin live record, drum intro to rock and roll.
Yeah.
You couldn't wish to open it any better. And with Robert Plant singing down and quite possibly out of tune, but I'm not going to... when he sings like that, he can start a show any way he wants. It was 1976, and the filming took place in the summer of 73 during 3 nights of shows at Madison Square Garden, New York City, with additional footage shot at Shepperton Studios. So again, just talking about the film. John Bonham, drums, John Paul Jones, bass, Jimmy Page, Robert Plant, and another Eddie Kramer. Engineering
He's everywhere, man.
He was the guy. So a track listing of, so if you just look at, I'm going to go to the movie because the movie has all of the tracks. Rock and Roll, Black Dog, Since I've Been Loving You, No Quarter, Song Remains the Same, The Rain Song, Dazed and Confused, which that goes off into some weird places
And
visually
horses,
as well.
is that the one where they then the horses riding
Yeah.
mid-song and stuff? Yeah,
Yeah.
it's trippy.
Stairway to Heaven, Moby Dick, which is, John Bonham in his drag car. And I think Jason makes a little appearance in there.
Oh, really?
It's been a while since I've seen it. Heartbreaker, and close out with Whole Lot of Love and massive powder kegs of fireworks. It's crazy. Surprised no one died. But for me, the picks that Jimmy in the intro of Since I've Been Loving You cemented to me that I wanted to play guitar. And
Wow, awesome.
visually, the guitar sounds great. It's that in-between sort of out-of-phase Jimmy Page sound, quintessential thing that everybody wants. And there's really weird psychedelic video effects of him splitting, into 2 and into 3. And it's
State
killer.
of the art 1972
State of the
effects,
art. There's some ones during Stairway to Heaven, I think, where Robert Plant, they're doing the mirror effect where it goes into himself. So he just ends up like 2 legs and a massive torso in the middle. And it's a snapshot of the time and what these guys were into. And but they mostly play great, mostly together. But it just captures a time.
Yeah.
And there's not much of the Led Zeppelin stuff out there. A lot of it never saw the light of day for whatever reason. It wasn't great, or there were issues with the recordings. But as far as live video footage with quality audio, this is the thing,
Oh, from those days, yeah, absolutely.
It's really well recorded. It's clean. Rhythm section's killer. And they hold everything together as usual. And, Jimmy's known as not being the most consistent live player. Does he make mistakes? Yes. Is he sloppy? Yes.
Yeah.
But he's Jimmy Page and no one else does it like him.
Oh.
And this is a good show for him. I think if you're going to get into Led Zeppelin, if you're not already into them, and you want to see what their live show is like, I think this captures it brilliantly. And it is a live record. From all the things that I went to, there's no real mentions of overdubs. It seems that it was basically done. There's a 2007 reissue where it was remixed and mastered and a few extra tracks added. But look at the name. So Bob Ludwig again, remastering.
Yeah.
Jimmy Page produced it. Kevin Shirley remixes it, as well as Eddie Kramer. I'm not sure if he had much to do with the 07 reissue, but Kevin Shirley, he's he is the go-to rock producer at the moment for that sound. The big sound. So that included non-album releases: Black Dog, Over the Hills, Far Away, Misty Mountain Hop, Since I've Been Loving You, The Ocean, and Heartbreaker, and features liner notes by Cameron Crowe.
Oh, wow.
So you can pick that up and get a few bonuses from that. But yeah, just a great record. What are your thoughts on this record, Matt?
Well, same thing. I guess touching on what you said there, like, sorry, English, second language. It's just, hang on. How do you say it? What the?
Everyone needs a drink right now.
All right. Yeah, similar to what you're saying, Jimmy Page, his reputation as a live player, but I don't know, I reckon he sounds massive on this. And there's some obviously live bits, but I always like hearing those things on a record.
Makes it more interesting. It gives a character.
Yeah. I mean, it's not as tight as Kiss Alive, sure. No problem. We all get that. But I reckon he sounds great. He's got a swagger in his playing. So if he's going for it and he's not joining every single dot, it's fun for me. I love it.
Yeah. How about you, Gabor? Much Led Zeppelin in there for you?
I love Led Zeppelin. Yeah, I'm a fan of Led Zeppelin. No Quarter actually was. I was almost thinking about doing No Quarter for this because that was again that actually got me into Led Zeppelin. No Quarter.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, yeah, he's a sloppy player. But I mean, he's Jimmy Page. I mean, the thing that sort of says it all to me with Jimmy Page, when you watch, it might get loud. You know that.
Yeah.
And you see a guy like The Edge. I mean, possibly one of the biggest bands of our lifetimes, almost, right? In U2.
Yeah.
And you see him looking at Jimmy Page playing some riff in front of him, and he's like, oh my God, this is Jimmy Page standing in front of me. I mean, just that says it all to me about Jimmy Page, you know. There's a guy who's on another plane to just about everyone else.
Yeah.
And if he's sloppy, he's sloppy. He can be sloppy because he wrote some of the greatest songs ever, I reckon.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, that whole movie, what a trip.
Yeah.
It's so bizarre. All this stuff that all of a sudden happens mid-song.
Yeah, there's
It's
a whole
weird.
Yeah, it gets into that medieval thing, and there's nothing that really connects at all.
Nah,
I guess
nah.
they're trying to create visuals for the songs based on each band member, and
But then you kind of go that they're riding on horses through like cobblestone old town with like torches and stuff, and you go, what has that got to do with anything? But it's bizarre, but it's just cool. I really like it. It's one of those. I've watched it quite a few times. I've had a VHS copy, or I still have it somewhere, and I remember watching it lots. And it's just cool. I mean, and just the way they look on stage and the way they do stuff. It's just cool. They were just
and you
Zeppelin.
you get the insight into Peter Grant a bit too in it, which is interesting. And I used to just go and hire it for a week from the video shop, like go down to the local video shop, hire that for a week, or I'd just get like 4 or 5 $1 weeklies and just sit at home and watch them. And that was one of them. And
that's back in the days, kids, when you had to drive to a shop that would hire out videos, and you would take them home and watch them in really crappy quality on VHS.
yeah, but no, they were good quality on, because they were, the ones that video shops get were like better quality, thicker tape, just better everything than better resolution, all that stuff, because they had to last longer. But yeah, I don't know, like I guess the Excalibur thing, I was a huge fan of that movie when I was a kid. So having that in the movie was just like, oh, I'm getting 2-for-1 deal here. But the set list is killer. As I mentioned before, the recording of it's killer.
Hit after hit,
yeah. And it's Jimmy Page. You know? Just nothing more needs to be said, really.
Exactly right, yeah.
All right, well, not dissimilar to Led Zeppelin. We're up to our final album of the night, final live album, Gabor. You've got the floor, man. John Zorn, featuring the amazing Mark Rebo on guitar.
So again, I thought I'd pick something that's a little bit sort of left of center, and maybe something that people may not know so much about. But it's an absolute killer band, and one of my all-time favorite guitar players. So the album is The Song Project Live. Now, John Zorn, for people that don't know John Zorn, I've probably talked about John Zorn a few times. I mentioned John Zorn a few times.
Yeah.
But he's basically a New York-based composer, performer with an insane output of music. I mean, the amount of albums he releases every year is insane. He has his own label. He writes just about any style of music you can possibly imagine, from the craziest electronic noise stuff to beautiful chamber music and everything in between. He has all these different bands that he picks and all sort of stuff. And but one of the things he's really well known for is the New York, what's called the New York downtown improvisational world. Mm-hmm. So he picks a lot of musicians, and there's a lot of improvisational music based that sort of comes out of it. Now, this album, the idea behind this live album was, so John Zorn was sitting having lunch with this guy, Jesse Harris. Now, Jesse Harris, for people that don't know, is a songwriter and lyricist. Probably best known, he wrote a bunch of the hits for Norah Jones. He wrote, what was it called? Don't Know Why Didn't Come.
that
Don't Know
first
Why.
record. Yeah.
He won a bunch of Grammys because he wrote 5 or 6 songs on that album. Come Away With Me, I think the album was called.
Yeah. Is he the bass player on that record?
No. The bass player on that record, I think, was her boyfriend.
Okay.
Or whatever. He was. No, I don't think he played. He played some guitar on the recording, but
Okay,
I don't think he ever performed with her live. But so he wrote Don't Know Why. He wrote a bunch of those hits. Excuse me. That's what he's probably best known for. So John Zorn and him were sitting having lunch, and Jesse Harris was talking about how being a songwriter and working for labels and stuff like that, very often he gets songs given that are complete songs, and there's even melodies there, and he's just asked to write lyrics. So that gave John Zorn an idea, because a lot of John Zorn's music is instrumental music. And he thought, hey, wouldn't it be fun to do something where I invite a bunch of my favorite singers to write lyrics to instrumental songs? And John Zorn was planning, this was in 2013, John Zorn turned 60. And that year he did, I think for a month or 2 months or something like that, all over New York, they did a whole bunch of sort of his 60th birthday celebration concert series. And he did, again, every style of music you can possibly imagine, and then it sort of celebrated birthday and his music and stuff. So the big finale sort of thing for that 60th birthday concert series became this song project. So it was released on April 25, 2015 on John Zorn's own label called Tzadik. So that's Tzadik for anyone who wants to know, Tzadik. It was recorded on September 29, 2013 at Le Poisson Rouge in New York City, which is I think it's sort of a club known for lots of improvisational music, for his 60th birthday concert series. So he invited Jesse Harris. He invited Mike Patton, who we talked about in the infamous Mr. Bungle episode. He invited Sean Lennon, John Lennon's son, and he invited Sophia Ray, who's a Argentinian singer who actually's got an amazing voice. If you go and listen to, I sent you a link to a concert. It's not that exact concert, but it was filmed in Poland. But it's pretty much the same songs, almost the same songs in the same order. I think there's maybe 1 or 2 songs that are, but it's pretty much the same thing in the same order, with the same musicians, same band, same singers and everything. So maybe, I don't know, stick that in the show notes or something like that, cool. Possibly, because it's a killer concert. So he got all these guys to do that. Sean Lennon, for some reason, couldn't be there, but he wrote lyrics for one song, but he didn't actually sing on it, but he wrote lyrics for one song. Now, one of the best things, other than the singers and the songs, is the band, which is insane. So the band consists of, just giving a quick run through, or actually I should say, so the band is one of the bands that he created called The Dreamers. So he has a bunch of different acts and bands that he writes music for, and he gets different musicians that, in his opinion, work well together. And he has one band called The Dreamers, and this band is The Dreamers, which is Ciro Baptista on percussion. Now, he played with Herbie Hancock, Yo-Yo Ma, Wynton Marsalis, Paul Simon, David Byrne, Brian Eno, Carlos Santana, James Taylor, and. List is insane, that the people he played with. On drums, Joey Barron, who played with Stan Getz, Dizzy Gillespie, Bill Frisell, Chet Baker, and on David Bowie album as well. And there's a David Bowie quote saying, he said, Barron is making metronomes shake for fear. He's so steady. Wow. Anyway, that's a David Bowie quote. On bass, Trevor Dunn, who plays with Mr. Bungle and a bunch of other bands, but amazing bass player as well, playing electric and upright bass. Now, on organ, piano, and Rhodes is John Medeski, who's maybe some people may have heard of a band called Medeski, Martin and Wood, which is a sort of jazz trio, which is bass, drums, and organ. But I mean, he played when he was a child prodigy, basically. When he was a teenager, he worked with Jaco Pastorius, He worked with Iggy Pop, Trey Anastasia, John Schofield, and Robert Randolph, amongst other people, right? Just to give you an idea of the caliber of the band, right?
Yeah.
Then you have Kenny Wollesen on Vibes, who played with Tom Waits, Nora Jones, Sean Lennon, Bill Frisell, and Joel Lurie. And then you have Mark Rebo on guitar, who played with Jack McDuff, Wilson Pickett, Elvis Costello, Tom Waits, Arthur Lindsay, T-Bone Burnett, Alison Krauss, Robert Plant, the Black Keys, Elton John, McCoy Tyner, McCoy Tyner, and many, many, many more. I mean, his list is ridiculously long as well with people he played with. That's the band. It's a killer band. The caliber of players is insane. And John Zorn is sort of sitting there. He's almost, if you watch the live footage, he's almost like a conductor. And he has his signals that he worked out. And the way he works in that band, I think, there's a certain structure to the song, but then he points at people and gets them to play more, and you play quieter, you play more. He has his hand signals worked out. It's quite interesting to watch. And then you have Jesse Harris, Mike Patton, and Sophia Ray on vocals. So just to give you an idea of the caliber of the band. Next thing I wrote down, Mark Rebo, probably one of my favorite guitars of all time. Very quirky guitar player. He plays mostly a 63 Fender Jaguar through a Fender Deluxe Reverb in the show. Can't quite see effects and stuff, but he's known to play the King of Tone. That's sort of one of his pedals that he's known for as an overdrive. He also plays some classical stuff on this, especially with Sophia Ray singing. It's sort of flamenco classical kind of style. He actually started up being a classical guitar player, Mark Rebo. He had I think friend of the family or neighbor also as well, a guy called Franz Casillas, who was from a Haitian classical guitar player, apparently very well known. I don't know much about him. Who was his guitar teacher when he was young, and so he started playing with the classical style. So he's quite proficient as a classical guitar player as well. It's just one of those concerts. Again, probably not very well known to a lot of people, but some beautiful songs. There is some quirky stuff on there too. Whenever there's Mike Patton involved, there has to be some quirky stuff and screaming kind of sort of stuff. But they basically take songs. Like the Batman. John Zorn does a lot of his own stuff, but he also does a lot of film music that he covers, but he does his own interpretation of it. So to do, for example, an old Batman soundtrack, and then Patton screams over it and all that sort of stuff. But if you don't watch anything else, watch the Sophia Ray songs. Her voice is just insane. And it's sort of that sort of Spanish kind of, she's Argentinian, almost flamenco style guitar playing to a certain degree, but beautiful melodies with some beautiful vibe playing as well. It's just such a great, beautiful album in my opinion. Did any of you guys have a chance to check it out?
Yeah, I had listened. I knew John Zorn through his impro stuff, so I've been involved in some jams using some of his what does he call them? He calls them games or.
With the cards. He has these
with the cards.
The cards, yeah. So he has different cards with different symbols on it, and then these cards, depending on what he holds up, people kind of react to it to a certain degree.
Yeah. So I've done some jams with that stuff, and also with the hand signals, and the hats, like they're taking hats on and off, and it's weird stuff. But anyway, so I sort of knew him through that, and I knew Mark Rebo mainly through his solo stuff and his Alison Krauss stuff.
Yeah.
So, to see them working together, I thought it was a really cool mix. So I hadn't heard of this project before.
Yeah, a lot of people
you sent it off to us.
Yeah,
but I dug it. Because there's some really beautiful stuff, and then there's Rebo just getting weird.
That's the thing.
Which is all good. I like both parts.
He's such a multifaceted player, in my opinion. He really can do pretty much anything. So now interesting, Rob.
I actually, I didn't get a chance at all to listen to this one, so I'm all at sea. I'm the black sheep on this one.
That's all right. I've been in that position lots of times.
But it's in my Spotify playlist, and I just didn't get to it. But it's there to listen to, and I'll do my as I always did as a child. I'll hand my homework in late.
Yeah. The dog ate it, but it'll come in eventually. No, but if you get a chance, watch it live, because just seeing it is actually it's a big part of it as well, and just watching the interaction between the musicians and how he sort of conducts the musos. And just that's the other thing, and it's something that it's kind of so rare to see, I think, nowadays. They're just all big smiles, and they just love what they're doing. You can see all of them just really into it and really loving everything they do, and big smiles. The drummer especially is the happiest guy in the world. And you watch him play, and he does it, and it's a lot of it is quite intricate music. And but it's just the thing with Zorn. You can go anywhere with Zorn.
Yes.
He can take you anywhere musically, and that's sort of one of the things I really love about it. I think maybe people slowly start to find out, maybe to a certain degree, what sort of makes me tick. But for me, it's always variety and not doing things that are different and doing things, sort of changing it up. And I mean, he changes up more than anyone else. But check out the Dreamers. And actually they did, and that's you talking about putting Neil Diamond on at Christmas. The last few, maybe 4 or 5 years, yeah, something like that. One of the Christmas traditions at my house is, so John Zorn and the Dreamers did a Christmas album.
Wow.
And it's really beautiful versions of Christmas kind of songs with Mike Patton singing on it, some of them, and some of them just playing guitar. But the idea, the concept behind it was because they're all Jewish guys, a bunch of Jewish guys playing, a bunch of Jewish jazz guys playing Christmas songs. That was sort of the concept behind that.
Nice.
And it's a really, really good album. And it's, again, a Dreamers. If you get a chance, check out the Dreamers. And there's also Bar Kopka. That's another really good band of his, of John Zorn's, to check out.
Very cool. Well, we've covered 11 live records. I don't reckon we've ever heard a collection like this before in the history of musical commentary / criticism.
Yeah.
And good job, fellas. Rob, this was such a good idea. And
Yeah, thanks, Rob.
as I've said, we will have to do this again because there's a gazillion other live records. Hey, if you're still listening at home, shoot us well, it's been a long show. I think a great show. But yeah, if you're listening at home, if there's an album we haven't covered that you're like, what? How could you not cover that? Yeah, send in a note. We'd love to hear about that. All right. Now, Gabor, when you're not cranking up the Zorn around the Christmas tree, tell the nice people at home about what you do.
So if you want to hear me talk even more than I do on this show, you can check out my YouTube channel called The SuperFunAwesomeHappyTime Pedal Show, all one word. Actually, the is separate, but everything else is one word. It's myself and my friend Alex, and we review pedals and guitars and amps and just general fun banter and gear nerdiness.
It's great, man.
And
It's
that's
a
on
great show.
YouTube.
It's a very good show. Thanks, Gabor. And Rob, when you're not renting out, the song remains the same for a week at a time.
Oh man,
What are
where
you
can I
doing?
do that? Yeah, I'm out gigging, thankfully, luckily. And you can keep up with everything that I do at roadtripent.com. Actually had my first solo gig in almost 3 months because the band has been so busy. I haven't
Wow. Cool.
I haven't had any. So that was fun, something different. But calluses. Like I
From the
play
acoustic.
3-4 nights a week, and I still don't really have calluses. But after not playing acoustic and then doing a 4-hour gig last Wednesday, instantly,
Dude.
like third finger calloused, and it's so weird. The songs that I haven't played for ages, it was just first time around in the chorus, I would just forget a chord. And then the second time around, I know what that chord is now. And then it's just like, boom, boom. It's that whole, comes back to that live thing. I can see why they'd want to overdub, because there's never a time that you play a show that you're going to play it picture perfect.
Yeah.
And you just got to, it's funny, without notice, I was watching some podcast last night, Bonamassa, Nerdville one, talking to Marcus King, and they were talking about how, you play a gig and it'll be you'll feel like it's the worst gig you've done. You didn't play good. You didn't feel like you ever settled. And people will come up and go, that's the best show I've seen you do.
Yeah.
And then the ones where you think this is awesome and you're giving each other pats on the back, people
No
come
one
up and
gives a
go,
crap.
you were like, there was something off with you guys tonight, you know? It was, you can't. Have you had moments like that?
Oh, yeah. Heaps of times. Heaps of times. There's the amount of times you sit there and you play the gig and there's nothing coming from the audience, nothing. And then you finish, and then at the end, and you kind of go, oh, that was so crap. And then you have, I don't know, 10 people coming up to you going, oh, man, that was so good. And, blah, blah, blah. And you know, totally surprising. And then other gigs where you're buzzing and you're going, and people were into it and everything was kind of cool. And then someone will, you know, the staff will sort of say to you, oh, that sounded a bit funny today, didn't it? Like, oh, thanks. But yeah, it happens so many times.
Yeah. How about you, Matt?
Well, yeah, I just got sent about 20 tunes from the Jimmy Barnes Cold Chisel show I do. The guy who runs the PA is also the singer, and he's running a Behringer X32, so he's recording everything as well.
Yeah.
And he's just gotten around to mixing them as like demos and things, and they sound surprisingly good. Because live, my philosophy is I just go for it, and I know some stuff will be sloppy and not everything will come off, but I just want to go at it at that moment. And not expecting to get sent a bunch of songs, you know, maybe some months later or something.
Yeah.
But I'm enjoying hearing the tracks back, and I'm glad I'm kind of going for it. And so far, nothing's been totally.
But I mean, it's
discouraging.
It's funny that, because I mean, musicians, we are all our worst critics, our own worst critics.
Yeah,
We're such self-critical, cynical bastards.
But it is it is a good thing to do if you can.
Yeah.
Like what you said, record your gigs and listen back, because there are moments where you think, oh, that was absolute genius what I did. And then when you listen back, you go, that didn't work. You know, that was. Yeah. And then you go, oh, I didn't feel that. And then you listen back and you go, that was really good. But you do learn. Occasionally I might mentor somebody a little bit, and you just go, like, just listen to yourself play. You know, that's how you get better. You go, you, as you said, you know, your own worst critic sometimes. And if you can be that kind of objective to yourself and go, oh, I need to fix that, or I need to fix that, or something doesn't work. It's a good way to learn without having to sit face to face with someone and them tell you, you know, being your own sort of editor and producer is a good skill to have.
I used to always, back in the days when I used to play in a band a lot, and digital desks would come out, you know, and you could record without telling the other guys in the band, stick a USB stick in there and just record it all. Because as soon as you tell them, it'll be a horrible recording. And if you don't tell them, they go, oh, don't use that. Whatever you do, don't use that. But you listen back to it and it's really good. And one thing I started doing a little while ago, and I stopped, I should really do it again. When I played solo gigs, I just put my phone in front of me and just went live on Facebook and did entire sets live on Facebook, whether I screw up or not. You know, that's just the way it is. But the funny thing is, then you listen back to it, and more often than not, you kind of go, oh, you know what? Actually, I'm actually not that bad. You know, and it is funny how in the moment, you are your own worst critic, by far your own worst critic.
Oh, totally. I often hearing stuff back to that whole objectivity is really interesting, because often how I feel about how I'm playing or interacting with the band is what does everything sound like? What does the guitar feel like in this room? Is it a good sounding room? The recording doesn't care about that.
No.
You're just hearing, is my tone working?
Yeah.
That's good to be objective when you hear it back. You know, oh, am I too gainy? Am I not gainy enough?
Oh, never not too gainy.
Never not too not enough. Anyway, so all that kind of stuff, or you know how the guitar feels. But again, the recording doesn't
care. Yeah.
Doesn't care about that either.
Yeah, and it's a good thing to like we use it for promo. So I don't like going into a studio and recording promo for the band pristine. Just take a minute of live, like 4 live songs into a minute with some video footage, and it's real. Like people, I think people want to see real these days, and that was one of the points they made on the Bonamassa podcast, was that when things go wrong, people can identify with that, and that becomes their favorite gig because, you know, they saw the guy amp clap out and someone run over and do that. I know when I saw Bon Jovi at Eastern Creek, the story that we had out of that was that the rain got in, blew a whole, 64 channel desk or whatever it was, and we're just looking up at the mixing tower while they unplug one, pull a second one up and put it on and repatch it, and then slowly it comes back. Yeah. And you go, man, that is amazing because the band didn't stop playing. Yeah. It was just vocals and acoustic guitar there for a little bit, and then a floor tom came back. And they're the moments where the band goes, that was, that horrible, that went wrong. But for us in the audience, it was like, that was something real. And we watched them battle through it, and make some jokes and whatever. It was, Yeah.
There's something super special just about playing Hey, which I know we've all appreciated being able to do a bit more lately. And when it's fragile like it is at the moment, it's an interesting dynamic because it's such a special moment, those couple hours on stage. All right, well, Gabor and Rob, guys, thank you so much. It's been a really cool show, and my thanks also to Fretboard Biology for sponsoring today's episode. Maybe you can subscribe to us on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you podcast. We've got a whole bunch of other iconic albums we've been talking about on the show. My name's Matt Wakeling. You've been listening to the Guitar Speak podcast, and I always like to close with the words of wisdom from German rocker Michael Schenker of Scorpions, UFO, and the MSG, who once told me,
"Keep rocking, keep on rocking."
Keep on rocking, indeed. I'll catch you next time. Bye now.